all things were made. For us and for our salvation, He came down from heaven, was incarnate by the Holy Spirit, and Virgin Mary, and was made man. For our sake He was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered death and was buried, and the third day He rose again, in accordance with the Scriptures. He ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and His kingdom will have no end. We believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who with the Father and the Son was worshipped and glorified, who look to the resurrection of the dead, and the life of the world to come. Amen.
So Zakia, when I was ill, my head was so full of voices, I was so full of fear and paranoia, that there was no space for you in my head to think about how you were feeling. So can you explain what it was like for you?
Yeah, it's only something that I've really begun to explore in like the last few years, because I think when you grow up with something like a mum who's schizophrenic, it's your normality, it's your reality, it's not something that you stop and question much. And I think it was something that I used to laugh off, like, oh, my mum's mad, oh, my mum's mad, and sort of tell it as though it were a joke. And I think I struggled to accept a lot of the difficult feelings that I had about you and about our relationship. Perhaps when people tell people that I've got a mum who's schizophrenic, maybe you might suspect something that's a bit kind of dramatic and plates crashing and, I don't know, like something really in your face. But the reality was, we didn't spend a lot of time together when I was growing up. I saw you on weekends, and it was more of a sense of absence, a sense of you being there, but not really there. It was like you were elsewhere. I had you physically, but I didn't have you mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
The lights are on, but no one was home.
Yeah, and my dad always used to say to me, oh, I wish that you got to meet your mum before she got ill. I think you would have really got on. You might have, had a better relationship. And it was the sense of this person that I would never know. And I think that was really difficult. Also, you were my dad's white, and you were the gateway to my blackness and to my Caribbean heritage and to this whole flow of ancestry and history and lineage and culture that I couldn't really access because you were a bit of a closed door in that respect.
So I had distanced myself from it too because of my difficult relationship with my mother. Mm-hmm. So bringing you to Karaoke 5 years ago was in a way to make amends for that.
Mm-hmm.
So are you afraid? Were you afraid that you might suffer schizophrenia too?
Deep down, yeah, probably. I think used to be. I remember a teaching assistant coming up to me at school. I must have been about 11, and everybody at school knew about your illness. And she said to me, "Oh, have you been checked? Because it's genetic." And I was like, "No." And I think, yeah, I've carried this idea of a kind of ancestral curse because I know about the relationship that you had with your mother and that her mother had with her mother, and it was like this cycle of trauma and fractured relationships. And I think somewhere I've carried around the fear that when I have a baby, I'm going to go mad. But not anymore because, in a way, I think a lot about this idea of intergenerational trauma and the way that there is this flow between the generations. And I feel like, in a way, you were the fuse that blew the circuit. You, in becoming ill, in being forced to deal with that difficult past, the difficult history, your personal history, but that much deeper history that goes way back, that any person from the Caribbean that is a descendant of slaves carries inside them in their body. I feel like you being ill kind of forced you to address that. And in feeling all of that difficult stuff, you somehow didn't pass it on to me. You broke the cycle. So no, I'm not afraid that I'm going to go mad.
Good. I mean,
let's wait and see that.
I mean, it's been a bit of a journey, I have to say, but I'm very happy that, you know, when I first got ill, I was a born-again Christian, believe it or not. And when Jesus didn't come down from heaven and heal me, I lost my faith. But you know what? Even though I've had these 2 nervous breakthroughs, I have no regrets about any of it, because they are the reason why I am today, and I like who I am today. So thank you for choosing me to be your mother.
Did I choose?
Well, no one else did.
Thank you. Maybe it was Jesus. Thank you for birthing me, and thank you for having the courage, the strength, the resilience to bear the burden. I kind of feel like being slightly distanced from, you know, being here
In England.
And away from the scene of the crime, as it were, away from Carriacou, away from that kind of site of a lot of historical trauma. I think it makes it a bit easier for us perhaps to be able to go in. You know, we're not caught up with just surviving. We have the luxury of time and space and distance, generationally and geographically, and I think that makes it easier for us to say, yeah, I can go into this darkness. And for me, you know, our relationship wasn't the way it is now for a very long time. We had a very difficult relationship, and I think for me personally, being able to admit my anger, my frustration, my upset, my grief for the relationship that I didn't have when I was growing up, being able to embrace that and feel those feelings has actually been the thing that has set me free and cleared a space for us to have the relationship that we have today and be here at Somerset House, sharing it with everybody. We make our bed on the broken bones of mothers and fathers. We move our lives, silent, creeping, under skin, in wind, sea, and land.
We are the green shoots that grow from the midnight soil, rooted in darkness, striving for the light, knowing both will set you free. We are the last of theirs, the first of ours, and for them we must fight to feel.